This is the Silt versus role-playing game Family Ties, the Confrontation Part 2. We've already done our recap off mic, but I will note that the very last sort of thing that we saw was Japheth noticing that one of the sort of ancestral portraits of the Sketterish family was actually Lucas, and Lucas did not have the same like gloomy dead eyes that all the other paintings have. And I'm going to go ahead and just make that a clue. The fact that that there's a painting of Lucas, I think it's probably really important to what's going on here. And I'll be curious to see what you all come up with for your solution. Right now, the group is pretty split. Let's just let's just dive back into it. So I would like to suggest, Zeph, that you have not seen the body of the god necessarily. I don't know what we settled on, but I don't think you've seen it. You know kind of vaguely where it's supposed to be out here in the swamp, and that's where you've headed. And when you get there, you find what are the ruins of some kind of structure. It's it's all crumbled. It looked like some sort of like maybe villa, or depending on how old it is, maybe like a castle or something. But in any case, it's all crumbled. There's no roof structure really anymore left. Most of the walls have crumbled down. But you can enter it and you can kind of look around. This is where you're meant to be, but if there's something else here, you're going to have to try to find it. I'm curious, what do you do?
I think that I am at this point looking to the Cairn Maiden to make herself useful for a change.
Oh, interesting.
I
I
would
love
like
that.
to see if she might be willing to guide me
Mm.
through this ruin into the mucky, sunken bog
I mean, if it's a
and
dead
hopefully
god,
find something.
if it's a dead god, that's her jam, right? Or dead things are her jam. Bodies, bodies that need to be dealt with are her deal. I like that. Do you happen to have a move that can invoke the Karen Maiden, or are we just doing the revelation move here?
Just a revelation move.
Okay.
But my communion is -1.
Fair enough. Well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe do you have like an altar item that might be helpful?
I was just looking at that now.
Yeah. I do think it's going to be the revelation move. What do you think is going to happen if the Karen Maiden leads you astray?
Despite the fact that Zeph has spent most of their life caring for other bodies, that they themselves will become a new one.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I don't know if it's like, if worse than that is how I would characterize it, but I think that maybe you are meant to go out here and the Cairn Maiden like leads you to your final rest out here in the swamp. Go ahead and roll with the revelation move with communion if you wish to continue.
I have a tarnished silver gardening trowel, and I'm
Hmm.
wondering if that might help me start sort of excavate and see where I might get in,
Upturn
or
the
is it
sacred
like a
earth. Yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, yeah,
yep,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Well,
I like it. I like it as a sort of like tool for even just like getting her attention, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
With advantage.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think any of your no, your conditions don't apply quite yet.
That's an 8 -1 is a 7.
Very good. You have the trowel. You begin turning up this sort of wet earth. A lot of it is kind of like this the foundation of this structure that you're these ruins has kind of like split open and revealed the kind of wet, swampy earth, and you're kind of like digging. And I think it's one of those kinds of situations. You have to imagine what these ruins look like. It's lots of like partially crumbled walls. And so it's like half corridors, maybe like windows looking into other rooms, right? And every time you look up, you take a scoop of dirt, and every time you look up, you might see her passing by a window, say, just briefly, or you might see her the ragged hem of her kind of worm-eaten gown, like just going around a corner, right? You glimpse her, you know she's here. You can follow her to find where you need to go next to find the body of this god. But the complication is she is leading you to it because she wants you to rest in its place. If you don't want that hanging over your head, you need to write a verse.
I think I will mark a verse to be successful here.
Very good. Think on it. Whatever you're going to do. Basil, you're out in the swamp as well, with less information about where to go than Zeph had because Zeph's been there for a little bit. You're here with this guy. I find his name. Kind of weirdo. He's the one that was like stuff in his face, if I remember correctly. Fletcher Pickin. Obnoxious tie, very badly dyed hair, cheap cologne. Still got a little bit of food right here on his mouth from where he was like kind of voraciously cramming in his mouth. And you're out there kind of, you're not like in water, but you're in very soft earth, kind of clumping around, kicking mud off your boots as needed, or whatever shoes you might have worn. He says, I don't think I ever got a chance to tell you what god I worship.
You only worship one god?
Just the one. It's called the Tattletale.
The Tattletale. I don't think I've heard of that one yet.
The Tattletale, celebrity scandal cult, public and social faux
Oh,
pas. That's our deal.
oh,
That's what the hair
yes.
and the obnoxious bow tie, the cramming food in my mouth, like very messily and conspicuously in front of parties. It's all about faux pas. It's all about just committing sins, social sins. That's our
Oh,
thing.
that's not just who you are then.
The Tattletale loves it. Loves it. I love
What
nothing
does
more than walking out onto the sidewalk after an evening at the club and just piss all over myself and let the authorities and the paparazzi deal with it.
hmm, what has that earned you from the Tattletale over these years? I was interested to hear.
Here's the thing. There's always going to
Yeah.
be public outrage over this and that, but if you learn to appreciate that undying drama, the thrill as it dies down, only to be twisted and resurrected in a new form, that's when you know you've arrived. You've realized the true glory of our silver screen saints. How quickly the populace is swayed, how fervently they struggle to mire themselves ever deeper in triviality. Mmm, mwah, delicioso. You know what's a really huge social faux pas?
Clomping around in the mud while a party's going on?
He pulls out from the back of his pants, like as if it was a gun, but it's not. He pulls out a leathery mask. And this mask, he puts it on, and it's painted all over with eyes.
Hmm.
There's no bigger social faux pas than killing a guest at a party before you're meant to. And he pulls out a big hunting knife from the same spot in his pants
Oh no.
and begins lurching toward you. What do you do?
I I'm looking at
Think
items.
on it.
Yep, yep.
Back at the manor house, you all have been invited in by one of the young Sketteriches to come in and have a look around. You're taking a little tour of the house before dinner. This is Esmer Sketterich showing you around, and you're all, and it's kind of one of those things where you're all kind of being like led inside, and you occasionally hang back a little bit to look at this or that or whatever. Japheth, you hung back and you saw this painting kind of like tucked away in a corner. I don't know if you're going to share that with Gage or not. Lucas and Gage, you and Lucas are kind of there. It's, it's very like, this whole like kind of just schmoozing and roaming around. It's potent black leaf cigars, it's cool green leather, it's sparkling starlight cocktails, it's people chattering and laughing. It's there's also a little bit of like quiet judgment because this place has clearly seen better days, right? This looks like an ancient mansion out in the middle of a swamp that is owned by a family of crazy people. So it's got a lot of that, some Grey Gardens vibes perhaps. It's all just kind of falling apart a little bit, but there's still this veneer of luxury to it, right? I am curious what you're doing, Gage, while this little tour is going on.
Gage is going to have his hand on the back of Lucas's neck, just quietly trying to keep him at close range. And also, where's the alligator, by the way? Is that stayed outside?
Unclear at this point.
I think if there's anyone kind of nearby, Gage is going to lean in and say, "Do you know whereabouts we're going?"
I think the person you lean into is this woman who's covered in like paint, body paint and mud, and plaster. She looks almost like an unearthed statue or something. She says, "I think we're just killing time before dinner, which is supposed to be very soon."
Well, I think I'll take the kiddo to the little boy's room, make sure we're all cleared and washed hands before dinner's on the table.
She's covered in mud and paint. Yeah, good. You can go do that. Lucas says "Oh, I know where the bathroom is, Daddy," and he like takes you right to it, or he calls it the water closet.
Of course.
Takes you right to it.
Gage will say, well, why don't you go wash your hands, make sure you're spick and span. I'm going to wait out here.
He goes inside and you can hear him like operating you hear the of the sink, and he pokes his head out and he goes, "Daddy, running water."
Oh, modern amenities. Can't get enough.
What are you doing while you wait around?
I'm going to try and block the door somehow from out, like shove a rope around
So
the
he can't get
handle.
out?
Yeah. Maybe my belt.
That's good. I like it. There's no immediate danger. You can just do that. I'm okay with that.
With that done, I'd like to see if there's anywhere else I could snoop, find someplace I'm not supposed to be.
We'll pick up with you in a moment. Japheth, what do you do after you see this painting?
Yeah.
I think the group is well ahead of you now at this
I
point.
got a question. How large is this painting?
It's tucked in a corner. It's not very big. It's probably like just a medium-sized portrait.
Ooh, is there any way I can, I don't know, tuck that into my coat?
You can probably take it out of the frame and roll it up. I think that's a thing you could do.
If it's in a corner where that won't be noticed right away, yeah, I'll pop it out of the frame and roll it up.
I think as you take the painting off the wall, that's when you look to the left to realize Mercutio is sitting there staring at you. And the only thing, like, you're basically caught between Mercutio and this little out of the way corner of this hall. What do you do?
That's not good.
It's not good.
Oh, Lordy.
Mercutio apparently entitled to just walk around the house as he
Yeah.
wants.
All right. Um, I'm thinking through what I know about alligators, and that if you can catch them when their mouth is not open, they don't have the strength to flex it open. They're stronger on the bite than on the open. And I think that I'm gonna roll up this painting like I'm gonna swat it on the nose, and it's gonna be absolutely ineffective. But at that moment, Charlie, the hollowed Sketteridge family groundskeeper, intervenes and assists me,
Oh,
and
because
is like,
he's
Mercutio, here,
he's
boy,
there to
here,
help
boy,
you, right?
with his
Yeah.
remaining hand, and hopefully he
Nice.
will summon the gator away from me and
And you
prevent
get
me from getting
advantage.
myself killed.
You get advantage here, right?
Yeah, that's the from the what was that move called? Life of Service.
It's one of your moves. Um, I think that's great. And the way you've described it, I don't even think your conditions are in play here. So you're going to roll with, well, let's first of all, let's do the, I think we're still in the realm of the veiled move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Uh, get bitten up by an alligator, and the painting gets eaten too, so the evidence is
Oh, the
gone.
evidence is gone. Yeah, it's good. I like it. You're going to roll with focus
Sure.
with advantage, which is +1 or +1 plus advantage.
Ooh, what do we got? 9, 10. Thank goodness for advantage.
Nice. Think about what the scene looks like as you get out of there safely with the painting.
All
I'm
right.
going to check in with Zeph. Zeph, you have control of the scene, and I mean, I'm going to tell you where you end up, but I'm just curious, like, what it looks like. Like, how do you know to follow her? What does it look like to follow her? Because you never quite really see her, you know? She's sort of like always in the distance or kind of behind something.
I think Zeph is losing their cool just with the teasing glimpses of her at the edge and genuinely asking their god for help in vain has been their whole existence. And so the silver trowel, they're just stabbing into the wet earth at the bottom of the stone crumbling wall, and at certain points, just shouting into the darkness. Is this why you've kept me here? My every hated breath continues by your whim, for you not seeing fit to take me as I am. I was too young, too earnest in my longing for death. You can't have me. You can't use me. What? What do you want?
I think at that moment of like when you're loudest, you're most screaming, you're most like thrashing around, you're most like having this like outburst, that's when the trowel sticks into a bit of particularly soft, loamy cover and just collapses as if it was just covering the stairwell going down that you find.
Ouch. And then I guess Zeph will squelchingly pick themselves up and kind of like swick off the mud from the waiters and see if there's any source of light other than the gloam that's embedded in my chest as
Yeah.
I kind of wind down these stairs.
Yeah. You can head down the stairs. I think it's just like down and maybe a couple switchbacks, and then you'll be down. But we'll pick up with it in a moment. Basil, what do you do?
Well, I think the camera kind of cuts to some of these slips of paper. Basil's always mindlessly writing notes. And we see that they are recipes for truffle and human flesh.
Mhm.
And Basil doesn't quite connect that this person is intent has had motive to kill him. And Basil says, I suppose you figured me out. I had hoped to fatten you up a bit more before we did this.
Turning the tables. Yeah.
And pulls one of his kitchen knives. I don't have this as an item, so it's not an advantage thing, but just narratively, like pulls a kitchen knife out of, I guess, like maybe he just keeps them strapped to his belt. And yeah, I suppose we're about to have a knife fight.
Love it. Swampy knife fight. Veiled move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Well, clearly I'm the one that gets gutted here.
I think that's probably right. Go ahead and roll with vitality.
Done. So it is a 7.
7. You will get the upper hand. but I think as the complication, I'm going to go ahead and mark the last box on the little first
Oh.
portion of this and move on to the dinner portion at this point. But let's talk about the scene. I mean, I think it's very, you know, neither of you are really maybe like expert knife fighters, and you're also like slopping around in wet earth, and so it's
Uh-huh.
kind of, you know, wouldn't say it's like John Woo exciting of a fight, but it's happening, and it's a lot of like just it's a lot of I imagine it's a lot of just like slamming close together and like pushing and not and just like and wrestling
Yeah.
back and forth trying to get some leverage and trying to raise your stabbing hand and you both kind of tumble around a little bit. We'll come back to this. Gage, let's say you end up in I think you actually find the service chambers. These are dark and dank passages. Um, they sort of like there's like halls and little rooms that kind of connect up and kind of go behind the sort of like living areas of the house. There are closets stacked with spare blankets, spare clothes, dinnerware settings, gardening equipment. Um, a little bit like the Cairn Maiden, as you're in these like back corridors, you occasionally see servants like just darting out of your peripheral vision, just going behind halls and things, or just slipping behind doors, right? Always a little out of sight. Let's paint the scene, everyone. What basic living necessities in the service chambers are absent, and why do you suspect the manor staff do not require them?
There are uh, chambers for previously where servants would sleep or rest. Those still exist, but there's no beds, no blankets or pillows. Presumably, they spend their nights in prayer on their knees.
I think similarly, as you make your way down the hall, you can see the one communal water closet up here has cobwebs, dusty cobwebs from the spouts and the chain pull from the toilet, and it all looks as if it hasn't been touched in decades.
There's a like a little end table with a stack of letters from home, and there's the handle of a letter opener. The letter opener blade is just gone, and the mail, if you were to check the dates, has been piled there for years.
I got pinned here because both of my ideas have already been.
It's okay. You can go ahead and do the information move, Gage, if you're since you're kind of generally looking around. And if you want to describe specifically how you're looking around, you certainly can. But
There's clear evidence that someone's been hollowed here, and Gage is going to want to try and find out more about that process.
okay,
So
I think we're probably in the insight territory. I would say
that is a 9.
9. I'm gonna put brackets on your clue. As you're looking around, you're trying to look for evidence of hollowing, looking for evidence of because that's clearly what happened to Charlie, right? You're looking for evidence of illicit, divine workings. That's part of your remit as a custodian, always. And I think you find a trail of purplish effluvia, slime, I don't know, something like that, kind of leading to what is probably a servant's quarters or room. And before you can open the door and see what's on the other side of it, indeed, you'll hear some strange sounds, some but before you can investigate any further, you're going to hear ding, 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 the dinner gong being rung. Japheth, before the dinner gong rings, please describe how you and Charlie dispatch Mercutio.
Right. Dispatch like murder or just get out of the way?
Charlie's just going to shuffle it away.
Yeah,
But,
okay, that's what I assumed. All right. So I've got that rolled up painting of Lucas, and I'm kind of waggling out, like I'm going to smack this gator in the nose, and the gator gives that kind of threatened hissing noise that the gators do, and as I'm kind of pulling back, it opens up its mouth, and I'm like, "There's a light inside, and is that an angel?" And about then, Charlie kind of waddles up. If I remember right, Charlie's pretty nonverbal, right?
He with great effort will say something occasionally.
Yeah. So what he says is he kind of contracts Mercutio's name and just says, "Cusho," and the gator kind of turns, gives this disgruntled groan, this like not again. I never get to eat anything around here, and it closes its mouth and scuttles off. But Charlie gets a real clear glimpse that I've got this painting of Lucas, and concerned that I'm going to be turned in, I hold one of my own fungal-ridden fingers up and kind of go, "Shh, Charlie, remember the fungal pact that we've made."
And Charlie just sort of like gathers up Mercutio and kind of nods, bobs his head, and takes him back outside. And that's when you hear gong 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 gong. Basil, before the gonging, you have the upper hand on this guy, and you're getting ready to he's not able to hold up your, it's that whole like classic like and you have the leverage, you're on top of him, right? And that's when you hear the gong 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 in the distance, but it's there, and he says, "That's the dinner bell. That's the dinner bell. We don't want to be late for dinner."
Dinner time is now, and dinner time is here.
Do you kill him?
Yeah.
You can describe that.
Yeah, I think that almost like he's just surprised. Like he thought that he was the prey here. And yeah, so I think it's like that moment of like shock and surprise that like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. And that gives me that like extra moment of edge. And I think it is just like a through the throat, like straight down. I think Handyman is squealing and like hopping around this entire time. Like the whole thing like is muddy and bloody and noisy and ugly.
I think Handyman like licks at the blood, right?
Well, we both do.
Oh, good.
But as I'm doing that as well, I am with a quill writing on his flesh. And I'm doing Phantasmagoria Scriptoria here.
I think while you're doing that, he dying still. He takes out a disposable camera from his pocket, and he's like coughing and gagging. Take a photo. Take photos.
Is the flash on?
Click. He's commit. He's done his final sacrament for the tattletale. Phantasmagoria Scriptoria. I like it. We'll come back to this. Seth, you are going down, down, down. You reach underground, a ceremonial chamber. Incense is already wafting from a hanging brazier that's lit. There's an excess of flickering candles, just hundreds of them. The glint of tarnished gold and crystal in dim light. Let's paint the scene, everyone. This chamber is ancient and very well preserved, perhaps centuries old. What indicates that the family has been preparing for this ceremony for years?
I think the actual walls of the chamber have been converted into some sort of mausoleum or crypt, and all of the bodies of previous family members are interred here so that they too can be included when the time comes.
There are vials of blood from what must be generations of Sketteriches just stockpiled to be used in this ritual.
I'm gonna say that there's those chalk tally marks like you would have in a jail cell, just all over the walls.
Got a big idea, and they've been digging up artifacts from the land for generations. That at some point, someone had the idea to sort of take an artifact, leave an artifact, and so there was this pile of just like weird detritus that's come from like convenience stores and gas stations and like stolen salt shakers and stuff. But you can tell from the vintage of them that they, go back, however many generations would be appropriate.
Zeph, this is a sort of antechamber. You can see at the far end of it, there is a doorway leading into another chamber. The Cairn Maiden. The Cairn Maiden is standing at that doorway. Turns, her long limbs, her long fingers dragging on the stone, her face covered by a veil. She turns and walks into that chamber. And then you hear this loud, ghostly banshee wail, presumably from the Cairn Maiden. I think to stay in the scene, you have to do the revelation move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you lose your nerve?
That somehow this is a situation where I will be forced to take on my god's mantle, and that I
Ooh,
too will have some sort of permanent role in the deaths of those around me.
that feels pretty bad. I'm not sure I can go worse than that. I like it. This is if you wish to continue, if you wish to, especially if you wish to press forward into that other chamber. This is going to have to be with communion. And I think because of Drawn Toward the Void, I'm going to put you at disadvantage as well.
Huh?
Or you can turn around and go back to the party.
As much as the oh, I'm forgetting the name of the god that was worshipped by the other, the paparazzi hungry one.
Oh, the tattletale.
Yes, the tattletale would love me coming back to the party just like covered in muck.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I think that Zeph has no choice but to move forward.
Mm. Roll those dice. What is your communion?
Oh, my
Minus.
communion's still -1.
Oh, and you're rolling at disadvantage as well.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
See
uh-huh.
how this
It's gonna be
goes.
great. Okay. Okay, that's 8. With disadvantage, -1 is still 7.
Okay, good. You can keep going. Basil, sounds like you are going to be doing your Phantasmagoria Scriptoria. We'll pick up with that in a moment. Gage, you hear the gong. Do you go to dinner, or do you do something, or do you press forward into that other room?
I'm going to option C.
Mm.
I'm going to take from my pocket a small envelope of rusty gray powder, and I'm going to try and do the ritual of the Skyward Sprawl.
Oh, what does that do? Remind me.
When I call on the power of the Skyward Sprawl, roll with communion. If you have, I don't have concrete rod. On a hit, the Garden of Steel and concrete erupts from the ground to do my bidding.
Interesting. What do you hope for it to do?
If there is a hollowing happening here, or maybe just tie up the servants, keep them busy or
Okay.
otherwise engaged.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Hold that roll for a moment. Japheth, you hear the gong. Do you go to dinner?
I want to try, if possible, to I don't know, get a glimpse of what's really going on at dinner, because I've got a feeling it's not. It's going to be a massacre. Is what I'm expecting. So I kind of want to see if there's a way to like peek around the corner
cynical.
from behind the curtain or something, and then not go in. But
I mean, if you like get anywhere near the dining room, there's going to be enough people milling around where I don't think you're really going to be able to hide. Um,
seeing the crowd, I've got a rolled up painting. I'm going to search for Gage. I want to try and find Gage and show proof that Lucas is not what he
Gage,
seems.
Gage is in the back corridors. You're going to have to look around for a little bit to find
Right.
Gage, which you can do. But actually, what you might hear is a of that water closet door, and you see a belt holding the door secure.
How old do I know
Hello?
Gage's belt buckle?
Hello? The door won't open. Hello? It's Lucas. What do you do?
Definitely keep on walking.
Very good, very good. I am going to mark a mark on the dinner track, and we're going to take a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break. I would like for you, if anybody has any outstanding verses to narrate or resolve, I would like for you to be thinking about that. Also, maybe be thinking about some of these questions and whether you want to start answering them. So I will see you all in 10. Who has a verse they need to resolve? Go ahead, Zeph.
I marked a verse in which I should describe a flashback to the event which made you step away from your faith. And previously we had seen Zeph, very young, slip on a river stone and hit their head. It was the first time that they saw the Cairn Maiden standing there, and spent much of their young life dedicated to the idea that they could give peace to those dying amongst this cruel world that feeds dispassionate corporate gods. And after years of offering comforting words and watching people sink into a warm darkness in the back of their brains, Zeph would brush their eyelids closed over empty eyes and begin to yearn for that release themselves. And weary after hundreds of deathbed confessions of violence and horror, Zeph decides that they would like to embrace the maiden finally. And so we see Zeph on the edge of a rocky river shore, lying in the river, blood trailing from their wrists downstream. And just as that darkness catches at the back of their eyes, Zeph jolts awake again, the Cairn Maiden just standing over their shoulder in the peripheral. And over the course of days, weeks even, Zeph continues to try and convince the maiden through their never-ending cycle of death and rebirth that they need and deserve and want peace. Why can't I have peace? Why can't I have what you give? And in the end, on the last day, knowing there would be no comfort, Zeph stands up, dons a coat, turns their back to the Cairn Maiden, walks down the dusty road, just skipping a stone angrily out ahead of them, and it's snapping back into their hands.
Inside the adjoining chamber, there is an altar, a slab of strange, porous stone or possibly fossilized wood, carved with dancing symbols. It sits at the feet of a looming, mummified body which hunches against the back wall. Its bone structure is warped and twisted like a sickly tree. Its withered flesh hangs with scraggly moss, and hundreds of tiny fungal blooms are all over it like lidded eyes. And importantly, Zeph, what are the glomes doing down here? Or anyone?
I wonder if it's just as simple as curled and coiled glowing maggots feeding on the body.
Intriguing.
Like underneath the mummified, you can see the
Crawling
glow.
around, yeah, in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a big body too. Like it's like kind of sitting on its haunches, and it still looms over you, right? So, this mummified, presumed dead god, that you're now seeing. You can make the information move while now that you're here. Just tell me how you do it.
I would like to use my move, the Maiden's Embrace,
Hmm.
which allows me to speak with corpses as if
Ah,
they were side characters,
oh, good. Yeah.
and the dying can communicate with you clearly no matter the lucidity. When
Mm.
you give comfort to the dying or perform final rites over a corpse, roll with communion. On a hit, you may clear a relevant condition. On a 10 plus, you may also choose one of the following.
So
Get a
you,
clue, so on and so forth.
for now though, you're just communicating with it, right?
Hmm.
I like that as the way by which you are going to get your information move with communion.
Okay. I would love to roll better than I
You're
have
doing a lot of
done.
communion rolls. It's like your worst stat.
Yep. 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 Well, maybe I'll finally find peace. Okay. That's yet again an 8 and a middling 7.
You'll get your clue. Here's the problem. One is not meant to communicate with gods, irrespective of whether they're alive or dead. And in this world, gods don't usually speak in a way that we easily understand. They have unknowable and um, unknowable ways of communication, right? Ways that their followers might understand, but that generally speaking, one would not understand. I think the process of doing this has the potential to either drive you mad or, I mean, if the Cairn Maiden was like, no sign of her, by the way. If the Cairn Maiden was sort of like shocked by whatever she saw or whatever she experienced in here, certainly how could you possibly survive such interaction? You're going to have to roll the revelation move right now before you get your clue. I want to know what you're afraid is going to happen if you lose control here.
I think that I just become a tool for it. That kind of possession that gods do, and I just become a vessel or a
Mm,
vassal, and
mm.
knowing to myself or anything else.
I think it's worse than that. Um, you will leave this place wearing a mask made of gloams. Go ahead and, if you wish to continue, I'm going to make you put you at disadvantage because of your void condition, and roll with communion.
Yeah. Okay. Disadvantage. My tube of super glue is not going to help me here. Okay. 5 minus 1 is 4.
Hold that thought. We'll come back
Yeah.
to it. Basil, let's get your move done. Phantasmagoria Scriptoria. Would you read it off for us?
Yes, I will. I can write a prayer mark somewhere to turn that space into a writing cell for a long dead worshiper of the Scrivener, an angel of my faith. If I do so, roll with communion. If I use sacred ink to write the prayer mark, mark ink and take advantage on this roll. On a hit, a ghostly writer will be drawn to the writing cell and begin transcribing sheet after sheet of knowledge from the other side. Any rolls associated with actions and the actions the angel helps you with are taken at advantage. On a 10 plus, the angel won't ask for anything in return.
Are you going to mix your ink in there as well? All
Yeah.
right.
9, 11.
Nice. Give us the scene. What does it look like when you summon them?
Yeah. So two things are happening concurrently as Basil is writing on the flesh of this. I think he removes the mask and like is writing on the face, that type of thing, and sort of like summoning this thing that's called this saint is called the Die of Six Sides, DYE. And we see just kind of like coming up from the murk and sort of like almost like sorry that the little like behind the couch like staircase trick, almost like that, like this thing is kind of like lurching up, and it's like six children in this sort of like inky weird shape, just like dripping with these different chromatic shades like blue, and there's a lot of black for sure, yellow kind of mixing in and that type of thing, and it's approaching the body, specifically the head of the body. What's interesting about the head of the body is after this killing, and as Basil is writing on the face, the eyes seem to just be melting into like black ink, and they are overfilling with this ink, and the ink is just running down the sides of his eyes as he's laying there in the bog, almost like tears. And then something even stranger happens. The heads and necks of two geese grow out of these eye holes, and they start bending down into that opening in the neck, and they're pulling out eggs from the throat of this dead fellow, and they are handing the eggs from their beaks to the Die of Six Sides, who is then like coloring them, and each of these little like children hands are creating these sort of like marks on these eggs, and then handing the eggs to Basil.
Fantastic. I love it. You can you can do before you head to dinner, you can do an information move with advantage straight away.
Yeah, let's just do that. Do I add communion to this? Is that how it
Uh,
works, or is it just like straight?
I think probably communion makes the most sense. Yeah.
Okay, it's a 12.
Nice. Um, nice. Very good indeed. I owe you a clue. I owe Zeph a clue. Gage, you're going to roll the special move, right?
Yeah, I am. So it's communion.
Let's have it.
I'm wondering if I can make a case for advantage if I mix in a couple of those heirloom seeds that I shouldn't own in with the
Sure. I love it. Yeah.
All right, so 3d6 is 7. Yeah, 7.
Nice.
Uh,
Let's be reminded of what the move does here.
So on a 7, I get to pick one downside, or
Okay.
I get to avoid one downside. I can have it perform a useful service. The infectious gray spores of the sprawl remain dormant for now, or I'm able to convince the sprawl to dissipate.
Where's this? Is this written down on the sheet anywhere?
It is in the special moves on the sidebar. Starts at row 117 or 128.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. Um, when you call upon the power of the Scarlet Sprawl, on a hit, choose one. Uh, okay, so on a hit, a garden of steel and concrete does erupt from the ground to do your bidding. What do you choose from the list here?
I think I would like to mark a mask to bump that up to a 10. Or
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
right averse.
Sure, sure, sure. So on a 10 plus, you get to choose two. What do you choose?
I am going to choose that the moats stay dormant for
Oh,
now,
okay,
the
got it.
spores,
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense now what you were saying. Yeah.
and also that it will perform a useful service.
I love it. I think it's really great. It's going to do your bidding. What do you want it to do?
Keep the servants in
In
this
check.
area.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. Japheth, you'll probably walk in. You'll probably like find the servant quarters because the entrance was nearby where the bathroom was, um, and you'll probably hear the ritual going on, and you might walk in the middle of this happening. I want the two of you just to describe what it looks like as the back of the house is held in place, like what goes on here.
When Japheth gets there, he'll see Gage with this little packet of seeds and this little packet of rust flakes, and he's mixing them together in his palm to sow them on the ground.
I think that to some extent I may have found Gage by following a couple of trails of like little seeds that are laying on the ground. Like so, I add a couple of little seeds to his hand and said, "I think you dropped these special morsels from I don't know. I don't know. Crunchtooth might keep account of these things in the end."
Oh, these aren't his. But thank you.
Was that your belt on the door back there to the water closet?
Yeah, still keeping that door closed?
That's seems to be that's the way I left it.
Good.
That Lucas though, he's a the guy that meant he's a rascally one, and we need to talk. And I kind of hold up this rolled painting.
Oh, yeah, he's a god or angel or hallowed something.
What about this ritual? What does it look like when the concrete bursts from the ground and holds the servants in place?
So the concrete sprawl, I think with the seeds mixed in there, it's almost like concrete and rebar vines and like corn sheaths are just starting to poke up from the ground and grow. And Gage is going to just take a step back. Also, the verse I marked allows me to now hear and understand the language of plants.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I like that.
I
I
say,
love.
oh, you're in the middle of something. This'll wait.
No, this is about all I need to do. Rest is up to our old friend.
I think you can probably see the servants. Like you can kind of hear like them probably like you know making various noises. You know that they're being like held in place. They can't move. That kind of thing. You have this one room where there's out of character. You have a clue waiting on you. I assume you go in there at some point.
Yeah, I'll warn Japheth that something probably untoward is happening in here.
And when you go in, You see a person. It's unclear what purpose they serve in the house. They might be a servant. It's not totally clear what is going on. And you might also see, like, around the room, the growth starting to pierce through the floor, trying to get at this person. And they haven't. It's not hasn't happened yet. But this person, this maid, will say she's crawling along the perimeter of this room, and she's putting her ear to the walls, and she says, "Oh, oh," and then looks at you and says, "It's in the walls. Can you hear it? It's in the walls." And that's when, like, bursting forth is an amalgam of corn silk and concrete threads and metal threads, wraps up and, like, just binds her to the floor. But your clue is it's in the walls. Basil, you get a clue as well, revealed on the eggs. The egg you get, the one that's handed to you, that all of them just seem like kind of like weird insights into the history of this swamp or of this land. It's all stuff that may or may not be relevant. The one that sticks out to you, though, the one that sticks out to you is an off-color joke. An off-color joke about voluntary sainthood as a last resort. I don't have the joke at hand, but that's what it is. And that's your clue. An off-color joke about voluntary sainthood as a last resort. And do you head to dinner at this point?
Yeah. How many guests are at this dinner party?
Like
Would you
around
say?
about
A dozen?
six to eight, something like that. Yeah, it's not very many.
Oh, okay.
With all of you, about a dozen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to gather up a dozen eggs and head to the dinner.
Nice. Good. I love it. Well, there's also the Sketteridges too. So yeah, it's about, in total, it's probably about 12 to 15 people or so.
Okay, I can get 18. I think 18
Just to be
count is
safe. Yeah, that's good.
perfectly acceptable.
Fantastic. Zeph, I owe you a clue.
Oh, no, I rolled a 4.
Oh, you rolled a miss. That's right. You're not getting anything. Are you going to write a verse, or is this
Oh
it
yeah,
for
no,
Zeph Harrow?
that's absolutely what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I don't want my brain to explode with purple effluvia.
Yeah. It was, yeah. Fair enough. Well, okay, good. So you go ahead and write your verse. I'm going to take a look at the clues here and see what you learn from going into the mind of the god, or going into the communicating with the god, and however that is. Mm, 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 mm. Gods communicate in mysterious ways. All you see when you communicate with it is just an image of a purple door in a room covered by, it's like imagine like a swamp, kind of like my background, and then just like a purple door standing freely in it. That is your very weird clue.
So Zeph like wipes mud across their face to wipe the blood away from their nose, uh, and just slowly backs out of the room.
Yeah. Fantastic. Gage and Japheth, are you going to dinner?
Well, I want to have a brief word here. Say, Gage, if this is all right. Say, Gage, I know you're a man of the earth, and agriculture is something you understand deeply. You know, there's that like the seasonal cycle, the growth, the harvest, the death. Some might say rebirth, but more accurately, it's a new generation growing up. I would argue that rebirth is not in itself natural. And I think that's all I've got to say. Here's this. I think you need to see it. And I hand on the painting.
I'll unroll the painting and take a look, and
How does it make you feel to see this painting?
not particularly surprised since Lucas has indicated knowledge of the architecture
That's
and
true.
layout here.
Reacted surprised at plumbing. Good.
So yeah, he'll roll it back up and say, "Yeah, if we get an opportunity, kid's got to go."
I'm glad to hear that. I was concerned. I can see you want to care for the living, growing things, and yet once in a while there's a reason to prune back.
All things are supposed to end, so that something new can come. This one's been around too long.
Good.
Should we? That dinner bell rang a while back. Should we? They're gonna look for us, aren't they?
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm hesitant to make him mad. I'm gonna go get that door open.
Can I say this is when I uh, arrive
Oh yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
the group?
yeah, yeah. And
Um,
Zeph too. I think you can all be kind of arriving around the same time. Yeah.
I'm
I
just
want to
like
just
covered. Go ahead.
I just Kramer bust into the like back of the like covered in mud and blood and waiters, no shirt, no nothing, just squelch into a chair.
Basil also covered in mud and blood, and some of that blood like dripping from his lower lip, with handsome handyman in tow, and then like just holding 18 dyed colored eggs in his hands, and is just like, I brought eggs.
I
And don't
love
worry, I took my shoes off at the door, and you can see that he's just here in his socks,
it.
which are clean.
Fantastic. Japheth and Gage, you can make your way to the dining hall as well. The dining hall has low ceilings, faded velvet curtains, dark stained paneling lit by guttering candelabras. There is the dull scrape and clink of silver on porcelain, rich dark wine swirls in flawless Nashite shimmer glass. Let's paint the scene. How is the Sketterich family straining their resources to maintain an appearance of luxury?
If you look very carefully, there are small little strips of masking tape keeping the fancy wallpaper up as it peels.
There is a candle in every single candle holder, but it looks like they were all snapped in half first and run very short.
There's a beautiful tablecloth over this entire big banquet table. But if you look closely, you can see that the extension has been made out of like salvaged wood from the bog, like old dead trees, that kind of thing.
And the pats of butter have all been quartered, so they're quite a bit smaller than they should be.
Fantastic. There is, sitting at the head of the table, there's a bunch of people already sat there. You recognize all the guests, and then you also see a few people, presumably Scatteriches, who you don't immediately recognize, although you might, Zeph. The patriarch of the family, Odalith Scatterich, is sitting at the head of the table. He has sallow cheeks, hair like dead marsh grass, eyes devoid of all warmth. He's dressed in somber shades of velvet and brocade, sitting in a well oiled antique wheelchair. And he looks up at you all and says, "Well, it's about time. Take your seats." Where is the boy?
Gage would have gone to collect him.
Oh, you collected him. Okay. Ah, there he is. Sit down then. I suppose we're just meant to eat soup all night. And he like rings the bell for the servants, but of course they don't respond because they're all trapped in the back corridors. And he says, apologies. It seems as if perhaps the second course is not in... We are not destined for it.
Basil raises his hand shyly.
Huh?
I brought eggs.
And he reaches out for an egg, and you can roll it to him down the table. And he takes it. I assume are they raw or boiled?
Yeah.
Okay. Easter eggs?
We'll
What's
find
going
out,
on?
I guess.
I think he cracks open the top of it, and like just some like unnatural looking fluid dribbles out, and he just like sticks his tongue in there, and he's like,
Like it's like black ink. Is that fluid? Yeah.
Exquisite. Exquisite. Yes. We may not be destined for finer fare than this, but I'll tell you what we are destined for, friends and family of mine. We have been chosen. Not those cattle, those fodder for the roaming hungers of barren lands. What have their so-called advances brought them but ruin? No, we have borne our blessings patiently, for the flesh that blooms lives on. Remember, children, our glowing bones shall become as temples, and we shall never perish. And there's like a here, a clinking of glassware and cutlery. It seems like they're all like kind of in on something that the four of you are not. And Esmer Sketterich, who sits at his grandfather's side, says, I'm not sure where dinner is, but perhaps we could go ahead and just move on to the next part of the evening, grandfather. I grow a little weary of all this. I'm marking the next box on the dinner.
Well, you know, I have some snacks if y'all are a little hungry.
There is a general murmured agreement that we should move on, though I'm sure there's someone here who would enjoy a delicious sweet treat. Gage. Everyone except the four of you is removing a mask from their coat or their bag and slipping the masks over their faces, including Lucas, who wears a little cat mask. They're putting on their little masks. Esmer wears a kind of a mask of like burnished silver. The other guests, you're kind of looking around, you know. The antiques dealer wears a black mask crowned with candles. Someone else is wearing a mask that's pale clay, cracked and bleeding with vivid colors. The Void Cult person does not wear a mask per se, but their skin begins to like change into a sort of featureless, shimmering crystalline surface. The Australian, or the one with the Australian accent, since there's no Australia, puts on a lacquered crimson mask with the features of a roaring panther. Everyone's getting masks put on, except the four of you. Esmer stands up and says, "Right, so here's the next part of the evening. We're going to play Saints and Sacrifices, or Masked Saints, if you will. The four of you are going to scatter about the house, and you're going to hide. And the rest of us are going to come find you. Anyone we catch gets a mask. But the last person to be caught, oh, they win the prize." "All right, then." And they all stand up and point out the entrance to the dining hall to suggest that the four of you should go hide. What do you do?
First thing I would do is regret joining Based.
Some of us had no choice. Zeph at this point had been washing their hands in the soup to try and get the mud off and cleaning them with a napkin, thinking it's cleaner than whatever muck they were just rolling around in. Pushes back up from the table, shrugs, and walks out the door.
I wanted to ask, with my move touched by the angels, I'm curious if this family is suffering from an illness of sorts that is caused by a god or divine source.
Capital Y, yes. And that's what they're here to probably deal with.
All right. So, according to the move here, my exposure to countless gods and such gives me insight. First time I act on an information roll with advantage. So can I just like kind of pocket that for,
Sure, yeah.
I don't know, something successful in order? All right.
I think that's fine. Do you go hide?
Yeah, I'm gonna take one of these eggs with me, and kind of head out the door.
Daddy, you better go run.
Why don't you come with me, kiddo?
Nope, can't. Sorry, I gotta come find you. I will try to find you first, though.
Right. Best of luck then.
Unless you, well, maybe you should win the prize.
Maybe so. And he'll get up and follow Zeph.
Now make sure you hide really good. It's no fun if we can find you too easily.
Gage will just tip his hat as he walks out the door.
Basil, Japheth, do you go hide?
Tell me if you want me to do a retroactive roll on this.
Okay.
I killed a man who was wearing a mask. One of these masks.
Do you have it?
That's, I think I would have it.
Put on the mask. You're a hunter now.
Well, actually, what I want to do is be the last one to be caught and just show up with the mask.
Oh,
and then there is no last one.
Mess up their game.
Everyone's got a mask.
Right. Well, we'll see how the rules play out. Do you go hide?
Yeah, and I think I like whisper the plan to maybe like Gage and Japheth and Zeph as I go of just like, and I'm just like, let me be the last. Let me be the last. It's okay. It's okay.
I love it. Very, very good. Very good. Very good. Japheth, do you go hide?
I think so. Yeah, there's a certain degree of I don't know, regret, like this sense that I can't let this illness pass on to me, sort of thing. Like there's got to be a way to solve this that's not just hiding, but I'm gonna meander around, look for a closet or a suit of armor or something to hide inside of.
They begin to count, hide and seek style. You can hear them counting down weirdly from 94. I don't know why. You have plenty of time to go hide. I just need to know, how you're hiding, where you're hiding, and then you're going to roll 2d6 plus an appropriate ability. I will tell you what happens after you get your number. Zeph, how are you hiding?
Zeph is going out the second story window, hoisting themselves up onto the roof, and unpacking their altar, which is a bundle of loose and sharp bones, and just holding two at the ready.
You are going to roll with vitality.
Huzzah! That is 10 on the dice,
Ooh,
plus 0, so a 10 success in general.
10 for Zeph. Gage, how are you going to hide? Where, how, and where?
I feel like this might be a good time to use my secret sweet sacrament in every spoonful power,
What
which
does that
gives
do?
me a 12 plus on a single relevant roll,
Oh,
so long as I describe the scene as it would appear in a cartoonish cereal ad for a new cereal.
I'll give you a minute to think of that. Uh, Japheth, how and where are you going to hide?
There's got to be a coat closet in this house.
Sure.
Just gonna tuck myself into a coat closet. Hope they mistake me for some coats.
Go ahead and roll with focus.
It was 2 dice, right?
Yep.
A 10. I think I've rolled with modifiers a 10 like my last 5 rolls in this game, if I remember right.
I was rolling sevens for a minute there.
Yeah.
10 for Japheth.
As Basil passed by, whispering the plan, I think Zeph would have, under their breath, also described the God pit out back. That might be an excellent hiding space.
Basil, how and where are you going to hide?
I think step one is to find a change of clothes.
Okay.
Perhaps the biggest faux pas clothing that I can find. And I think step two is Esmer has consumed the Wax and Scrivener's ink. And so I'm going to
Or it was
be
Otwith,
like,
but yeah. Yeah.
or oh yeah.
Well, but
Um,
they might have all eaten the eggs, though. So yeah, sure.
So I know, so I'm praying to the Wax and Scrivener to be giving me sort of like where should I be going based on this like connection
I love it. Roll,
with
you can
the
roll with
ink that you
advantage.
have.
Yeah. Advantage with communion, I would say.
It's an 8.
An 8. 8 for Basil. Oh, I misspelled Basil in chat, but that's okay. Or I mistyped it. Um, Fantastic. Well, let's have this little scene. Gage.
As Gage walks into the large two-story entry hall of this building, he's going to rummage through his bag and pull out one of those little cardboard boxes that you're supposed to pour the milk into box of cereal. And it says new Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth Floatos. And suddenly there's a little piano ditty in the background as Gage rips open the bag, and these little flecks of cereal start floating out and up into the air as a voice that no one else hears says, "New Floatos from Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth. Tired of feeling weighed down? With Floatos, every spoonful fills you with a weightless sensation. So light, so airy, maybe too airy." And Gage is going to just kind of flick the floating cereal into his mouth, chew, and as he does, we see his feet start to leave the ground, and he slowly floats up towards the ceiling. He's going to kind of drag himself along the ruined stucco and old fixtures for lighting into one of the darkened corners and just hang out there.
Fantastic. And per your move, you get a 12 plus.
A 12 plus, yep.
Nice. Basil, you are following the subtle signals, the ink of the Waxen Scrivener. What do you like? How do you know where to go to hide? How are you perceiving it?
Maybe it is just kind of like trails of ink. that are sort of like forming, and so I can kind of see like
Hmm.
oh, and it's instead of being a trail, it's like the opposite. So it's like forward where the person is going to go. So it's like a tendril of ink that's reaching out from these people, anticipating where they're going to go. So I can like I'm tiptoeing around, I'm in my socks, I'm in my faux pas clothing and that type of thing. And I'm just avoiding people as I like come around a corner and I see like one of these like inky tendrils grow like going down the hall, and I'm like, oh, not that way. So yeah, I'm just in avoidance mode.
And yet, you walk right into a salon where Esmer and the hunter and the void priestess are all standing there. And the hunter behind her red panther mask says, "Mate, I don't think you understand how this game works. You are caught."
Oh,
And
I just thought that I would get the edge on them by not wearing my mask as I hunted them.
where's your mask? And then you put your mask on, like, oh, well, come on. What's the delay? We got three more people to find.
Let's
And
do it. Four, right? There's four people left.
are there? Zeph, you are up on the roof, correct? What were you doing on the roof?
Brandishing pointy bones as weapons.
Very good, very good. And I think you see out of the corner of your eye a little black cat dart across the parapet. And then coming from around a little structure up on the roof is Lucas in his cat mask. And he says, "Found you. Here's your mask." And he hands you a mask to be a hunter. Describe the mask that he hands you. How does it make you
Very good.
feel?
Very ghost face. It is a porcelain white mask with expressionless features, still vaguely human, vaguely almost doll-like. I think that Zeph is still gonna try and kill this kid when he turns around.
Interesting, interesting. He kind of like turns and says, "Come on, we gotta hurry. We've got more people to find, I think." What do you do?
I think much like the cat that he pretends to be, Zeph is going to launch themselves with two pointy objects at the neck of this kid on a roof that is hopefully slanted, and a two-story fall will kill either one or the both of them.
Interesting indeed. We'll come back to that. Basil, you and the hunter woman are in the hall right outside the closet Japheth is hiding in. Now, the thing is, we've played this game many, many times in this house. Not to the same effect or purpose, just for fun, you see. And almost every time, someone hides in this closet right here.
I'm picturing at this moment the fungal rot takes over Japheth's lungs and he coughs involuntarily.
You see what I mean? And they open the closet door and they find you. And they hand you a mask, Japheth. What is the mask? How does it make you feel?
It is kind of one of those S-curve twisted masks like you might see from a Iroquoian healing society. Um, and while I'm a healer, I'm not a healer from that culture, and this just doesn't feel right to be obligated to wear this. And I make some protestation saying, no, look, I've become part of the fungal society. I'm part of the family at this point. I don't need to participate in this. And probably somebody just jams it on me.
I love it. Zeph, this is going to be the revelation move, probably, yeah, with vitality, I would say. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Slip and fall?
Yeah, I think it's worse than that. Um, it's worse than that, I think. I mean, Lucas is a divine manifestation of some sort. He very easily, nimbly gets the better of you and just sends you careening down to the ground dead. Roll with vitality. If you wish to continue.
Can I suggest that the fact that I have a shotgun might be a secondary plan of like if I slip and miss, can I have a second shot and take it with advantage?
I don't think you would have had the shotgun
No.
in the scene as you've described it. No.
Uh, well, I gotta try.
Yeah, good effort, but
Okay. That is an 8 plus nothing.
uh, the complication here is you're going to succeed and you'll send Lucas flying off the roof, but you will not be able to confirm his ultimate fate. But I will let you describe what it looks like.
Um, I think that Lucas has cat-like reflexes, and so as Zeph goes for a strike and a strike again, there is a bit of a turn and dodge, and you just kind of see their big eyes behind the mask as their foot falls on a slick bit of fungal rot on the roof, and they go just backwards into the darkness below.
Lucas falls to the backwards, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You do not though. You're still on the roof, right?
Yep.
Got it. That concludes the game and concludes the dinner phase. There are 2 marks left on my track. We are in the final part. Everybody gathers in the dining hall, all the masks distributed, except for one person. Well, 2, really. We don't know where Lucas is either, but Lucas was not one of the prey. Gage is not there. Esmer steps out to kind of the central hall where if he yells, you're most likely to hear him. And he says, "All right, Mr. Wright, you are the chosen. You were the last one. Go ahead and show yourself so we can begin the next part of the evening. You are the chosen. Congratulations. Everyone clap, please. Clap for Mr. Wright. If you don't come out in the next minute, I'm going to send Mercutio to come find you."
Gage will call down from the ceiling. I reckon that would be a mighty interesting sight.
Ah, there we go. I'm going to follow your voice, Mr. Wright. Say something to me. Recite a litany about cereal or something.
Well, I'd rather not.
Come on, everyone. We have to go get the chosen.
Might want a broom or a mop, something long.
They get into the room, and everybody's gathered there. I don't know what Zeph and Basil and Japheth are doing, but everybody else is gathered there. And they're all looking up at you.
Gage is just lounging on the ceiling, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think Otolith rolls in his wheelchair, and he says, "I'll see if Charlie has a rake or something." And rolls back out, and you hear Otolith hollering for Charlie. Gage is the chosen for the ritual, whatever that means. You have 2 marks left. You are running out of time before you have to answer the 4th question, whether you're ready or not, or the 3rd question, whether you're ready or not. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and do that. Everyone is putting their heads together to sort out some of these questions, maybe. You have 3 questions right now. 2 of them will just assist you in the resolution of the assignment. The 3rd one is the actual, like, you must answer the 3rd one successfully. The other 2 just will ease your way. Why is the Skettridge family so desperate to complete their ritual? What miraculous discovery has the family kept secret about their bog saint? What flaw in the ritual had the Skettridge family overlooked?
Kind of building from something Brian suggested in the chat previously. What if the Sketterches are desperate to finish this ritual because their family legacy is ending and there is no one left to carry on? And that the family tree growing as fungal graffiti in a back alley is actually the fungal is spreading and deteriorating the lineage, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. So it's about saving their
Dynasty or
lineage.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And related to that, I was kind of thinking that I'm conflating Lucas and the 10th Life sect a little bit, but this idea that they've been trying to bring Lucas back to life again and again because he's the youngest family member and they haven't had any progeny
Oh, I'm
viable
kind of into
since.
that actually. Yeah, and I like the idea of like Lucas is because they've done this so many times. Lucas has just kind of like become kind of like adapted this like he's become like a little god of his own in a sort of sense or a
That's
saint or
funny.
of some
Yeah.
manifestation, right?
Yeah. I must be so
Yeah.
important to this family they keep bringing me back.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, there's something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he's developed a whole 10 lives thing, but what it really is they're trying to like
Developed his own god complex.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Intriguing, intriguing. It's an interesting idea. Yeah, it's yeah.
Which question was this?
I think they're for the why are they so desperate to complete their ritual?
Correct.
They're trying to like
Oh, okay, okay.
preserve their line. But I guess like the ritual is to awaken this like dead saint, right? Like or God or saint, what divine manifestation that's down in that chamber. Um, like yeah, like how does that connect to preserving their lineage? I
That thing
suppose.
is filled with glomes, and everybody knows how those things breed.
Well, the Glomes, we do have a clue about the Glomes, don't we? They
I
soothe
think
you and then
too.
coax you to murder your family. So it's an intriguing choice, the Glomes.
I feel like the glooms might fit in with the flaw in the ritual when we get to that of like
Oh, I see.
the
Okay.
glooms are kind of like lingering around and they are like affecting this in some way. They're not, even though we're seeing
Yeah,
them as part of it all, they're like a parasite or something like that
the
on
first
this.
question seems pretty straightforward, and I think you can, and a couple of clues speak to it pretty easily. Does anybody have an alternate explanation for why they might be so desperate? Okay. If there's, yeah, I
I
mean,
think there's just this general idea of like the bog could be consuming them.
right.
So we have them drowning in peat. We've got it's in the walls.
Corruption
We've got the
leaching into the
corruption from
ground.
the god spot, and so that's three right there, right? That like the bog is kind of like that is the thing that is putting that pressure on their lineage and that type of thing, and why they need like tying into all of this. And Ben had suggested that there might be some kind of like their business is falling apart,
Right.
all of this kind of thing, and it's because whatever this bog saint is like seeping into their operations, seeping into their homes, seeping into their lineage, and yeah, suffocating it in a way.
Oh, interesting. It seems like almost like they want to bring it like they want to bring it alive. They want to awaken it so they can kill it.
Yeah, so that
You
the
know?
rot, because it's the rot that's
Yeah.
affecting them, and
Yeah.
so like if you can stop the rot by bringing it to
Bringing it
life.
alive, like making it alive, and then like killing it properly or causing it to kill itself, because that might be what the globes are doing, right? They're trying to like predispose this thing to wanting to like to suicide
Mm.
itself after it's alive, right? That's an intriguing angle,
Yeah,
actually.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love that it's the flaw that the gnomes are actually telling this god that it needs to kill everything around it and then kill
Oh,
itself.
they
So it's
haven't figured
actually
that part
kind
out.
of
They don't know about they don't know about the
Oh.
murder part of murder suicide. They only know
yep,
about the
yep.
suicide part. or they But that's really interesting because that means Gideon Marsh has been lying to them, right? Because Gideon Marsh certainly knows what the Gloams do. We haven't seen Gideon Marsh yet, but it
Mm.
does make one wonder what Orifax and Gideon Marsh are really up to. Like, are they, like I have to wonder if Gideon Marsh and Orifax are like setting up the Sketteriches, because surely that's a key piece of information they would have explained to the Sketteriches, and apparently maybe have not. So interesting, interesting. Okay, so let's start making a case for some of these questions. If no one has any objections to where we're headed with this, why is the Sketterich family so desperate? Answer: because this god's rot is like destroying their family and like making it impossible for them to carry on. It's only a complexity two. Which clues do we want to speak to this?
Corruption from the god's body will leach into the ground.
Okay.
The vision of Sketterich is stuck drowning in peat in the interdimensional diner.
Okay.
And then I thought there was one other one.
Oh, the family tree one,
Family
right?
tree
The family tree one.
would
Yeah.
be a
Okay,
good
yeah,
way to
yeah.
do
That's
this.
the most like obvious one, I think.
Yeah.
That's a +1.
Mike, you want to do it?
Sure. That is a 9.
You are correct. Gain insight into a significant vulnerability of the family. So the insight is probably just that they're incredibly weak and that they are. Is there something more to be learned here, I suppose? I kind of like the idea of like they are. Like, what is their vulnerability here that's going to help you? I don't know. Maybe we have to answer the rest of them. What miraculous discovery has the family kept secret about their bog saint?
So I was toying with the idea that the bog saint is a partially constructed god from one of the original Sketteriches. It's not quite all the way there, but it the family secret is that they made this thing.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I wonder if this even has to be answered because the because the opportunity is to learn what powerful advantage the family hopes to leverage for their personal gain, and I wonder if like what is the relevance of even knowing that? I mean, these questions and opportunities seem to imply the possibility of like maybe you don't even stop the Sketteriches, you just let them do what they're gonna do. Um, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how much it fits. The flaw question feels really relevant, right? Right, as we've kind of like defined it a little bit. But I don't know. It's intriguing.
Going back to the clues that led us to the conspiracy, one of them was gods can get confused and need to be reoriented to their purpose. Maybe just that concept will guide us on what's going on here.
Yeah, that does feel pretty relevant. I mean, are we agreeing that like they intend to bring the bog saint to life to first stop the rot, and then the Glomes will convince it to kill itself so that they can then be rid of it completely? That it's a pretty demented idea, but
Yeah, I like
they
that.
must be desperate. Um, it's I guess like then the next question, if we're interested in it, what flaw or no, what miraculous discovery have they kept secret about their bog saint? Um, that means that there's more to it than that. This implies that there's there's a reason, there's something else that they hope to gain beyond just mere continuity, you know? I don't know.
I've got a tell me if this is too universe breaking. A question that the hallucinogenic mushrooms are leading them either accurately or inaccurately to believe that the entire concept of this kind of polytheistic Silt versus universe is not true. That none of these gods are real.
Oh. I wonder if that like explains the presence of the Void Priestess too. Like, what is she here for, right? Like, what? Because her whole thing, their religion's whole thing is that the gods are nothing, that there is no, that they are no gods. There's just blackness beyond this life. So many interesting ideas in play.
When we scrape out, as far as our clues, when we scrape out the gloam stuff, which we seem to like for that final
For the
one,
final clue, yeah, yeah.
we're left with Lucas and we're left with hallucinogenic mushrooms. And maybe the off-color joke about the off-color joke about the voluntary
Voluntary
sainthood.
sainthood. Yeah.
I've
I
been
see the
working on the
purple
pair.
kind of connects. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been working on the pair of purple clues, thinking that something that they might have had a benefit from this god's presence, like the purple slime or effluvia might be a byproduct of the rot that's been distilled and then has some
Oh,
purpose, but I don't know what that purpose is.
oh, that's kind of interesting too. Maybe they like have tolerated this for so long because they gained something really powerful from it. I mean, maybe like this there it's almost like there's a weird idea of like the purple door almost being like symbolic of like an exit, you know? Like we're done here or we're trying to escape this in some sense. Like I like the idea of it being a symbolic clue, you know? Um, hmm, really intriguing.
The other thing I was poking around was what if this is sort of like the dream, like what if Lucas is the dream of a dead god, or a rotting god, and so the hallucinogenic mushrooms, like the whole bog is like this hallucinogenic space that this god has died in and is
Oh,
like manifesting this thing that can't die, and it's built its own mythology of this whole like, oh, I must have 9 lives, and
yeah.
now that I've used 9 lives and I'm still up, there must have a 10th life. Like that, like it's sort of like it's Lucas doesn't understand that he's the dream of this like dead saint and can't die. Like he is just this like
Yeah.
perpetuating thing.
Hmm.
Um
That's bleak. I like it.
hallucination
Yeah.
of
Like that, yeah, I
the
like the bleakness of that. That's fun.
That's pretty bleak. I also wonder about the Cairn Maiden's reaction to looking at the Bog Saint, like this wailing
ooh.
and then disappearing. Like that feels relevant. It's not a clue, but it feels relevant to what's going on here.
I mean, it's the precise, like, it's what she would find most abhorrent. A god manifesting in a, like an essentially immortal
Yeah,
concept
a
out
concept
in the
of like
waking
a
world
concept of
that cannot
immortality.
rest, that
Yeah,
cannot
that's
find
perfect.
any kind of
Yeah,
rest at all. Yeah.
yeah, that's really, really interesting. Um, I wonder then if that is connected to what the Sketteriches, like why they even let this get as far as they did. Like, is Lucas their like test case for like what this bog saint was doing for them? Like promise of new life or promise of never-ending life or something like that. But somewhere in the deal it got bad or they messed up or they're just kind of fucked now. I don't know.
Maybe they're just endeared to him like he's a kid, and if they're having a hard time continuing their family tree, like having a kid around the place every once in a while, like maybe that's just
Oh,
kind of like, it's like, oh, like this is innocence and rebirth and like this idea of like youth, and as we are kind of like corroding
oh,
and dying and
the bog
um
saint is holding them in thrall with this dream of Lucas. Like the bog
oh
saint,
yeah.
the bog saint knows what it's doing to them, and they kind of fundamentally know what's happening to them. but Lucas is there to sort of like, to remind them of youth, assuage them, to keep them kind of like in check. And um it also, and that makes me then kind of wonder about like once Lucas kind of got like let loose in the world and you all found him, or he found you, and he started like plotting like death on a mass scale. That makes me wonder like what is all this about? Like what is happening here? Is it the Bog Saint that was the villain the whole time? Are the Sketteriches just patsies? I don't know.
No, he's planning for murder because the god is decomposing with a bunch of glomes. And that is
Oh,
why
that's
he
the murder
chooses to
suicide
murder
part of
things.
it. Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Right. Oh, good, good, good. The glomes are okay. This is really intriguing. Okay, this is an intriguing idea. Intriguing idea. I feel like we're getting there. I feel like we're kind of dancing around some ideas here. I think we've obviously got the first question sorted. We know why the Sketteriches are trying to do what they're trying to do because they realize that they're about to be gone forever, right? Like this is it. They are decaying into nothing. We haven't answered the question yet, but we've kind of settled on this idea that the Sketteriches have kind of missed the fact that like the god won't just kill itself; it's going to kill everybody and everything, and possibly them as well. Certainly, everybody at this party. Once it is brought back, so even like being free of the rot is not going to be enough to save them. So that's a problem. And what? Yeah. It
I don't
might be
know
enough.
if
It might be enough just to answer that question. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like in addition to Lucas being a thrall for this kind of like familiarity of youth and that nostalgia, it could also be a promise of some sort of immortality that is also keeping them enthralled,
Yeah.
which is
I
why
think that's
they
what it
let it
is.
go on
That's
for
what it
so
is.
long.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah. I think
And
that's what it
so they're
is.
not worried about getting murdered
Hmm.
in the murder-suicide pact.
Yeah.
They are going to be immortal, so it's going to be fine.
Yeah. I'm super into this. Like the miraculous discovery that they've kept secret about their bog saint sounds to me like they at least it has the ability to create everlasting life, but that's kind of a lie. It's not really true, but they think they have. So it's kind of intriguing. If you all want to go with that, let's just start ticking off clues and see where it heads.
Let me ask, do we want to answer the intermediary question and then try and do another round of investigation before pushing to the final question?
That makes
Because
some
we'll be at a
sense.
flat roll on the
That's
third
all.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. See what we can get. If we can't get it, we roll flat. But yeah, squeeze what we can out of the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
So in
Well,
that case, if immortality was the immortality as
mhm.
it's described is what they were hiding, this miraculous discovery, the painting of Lucas is a clear clue to that.
Hmm.
The off-color joke about voluntary sainthood being the last resort. Here's my pitch. They all think they can't die, so that's really, really fucking funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I kind of like it. I'm into it. Um, and then the hallucinogenic mushrooms. Oh, we think that that's really good. We've decided that like maybe this is all just like the they think they've discovered this thing, but they really haven't. Like the bog saint has like kind of tricked them essentially, right? I think that's really good. It's plus one. Who wants to roll it?
I'll take a stab at it. Delightful. That is a 9. Oh, plus 1 is a 10.
So you know that they have been promised, or they think that the bog saint gives them immortality, but you know that I would like to suggest that it's not even like that they're scared of dying. They are just rotting and living forever, or they're scared of rotting and living forever, Um, and and so Yeah. But I think the key insight is that this is all just like a trick. This is just the bog saint, this dead god, this dead saint holding them in thrall. And you haven't rolled on the last question yet, but I think the flaw is a really well defined one. Like their plan to be rid of the rot is very badly considered because the Gloams are not going to just convince this god once alive to kill itself. It's going to it's currently presently convincing the god to try to kill on a mass scale, to murder on a mass scale. It's very bleak, really, really dark, bleak situation. I'm super into it. They are pressing forward with their ritual. um, Everyone is down. You are down from the roof or from the ceiling, Gage. No sign of Lucas, by the way. And there is a little bit of like minor consternation about that, but everyone decides that they don't have time to worry about that. They need to complete the ritual. And you were chosen, Gage. And now I have a question for you, Gage. Perhaps revealing ultimately some of the stuff that as players you've all surmised. As the chosen, a voice is whispering to you from somewhere deep in the walls of the manor, offering you the thing you most desire, if only you will stay here with it. What does it offer you?
Freedom from this conscription.
You are the you can hear the whispering in the walls. Presumably it's the dreaming of the dead saint. This makes sense in a certain degree because Lucas attached to you, right? Oh, Gage had to step away for a moment. Um, let's just pause for a minute.
Yeah, pause for a second.
So, Gage, you do hear that whispering in the walls now. It's you saw that like maid like kind of listening into the walls, like, oh, it's in the walls, it's in the walls. And you didn't really hear anything in particular, but now you hear it. And based off the chatter you've had with the other custodians as you're all kind of like making your way outside, you're hearing that, you're maybe putting together that this is the bog saint. This is the dead saint trying to communicate with you. And you really hear it when you get outside into the swamp. And I think, just to put a fine point on this, we might flash back to lots of private, intimate scenes between you and Lucas, with Lucas asking you pointedly, do you think you'll work for Biased forever? What would you do? What would you be willing to do to get out of there? You know, like always trying to like basically softening you up for this idea of, Daddy, we should just find somewhere to go and live together. And it's all kind of coming home to roost, right? You've been kind of led here. My question, well, you've already answered it to some degree, but I'm curious what you do.
I'm going to go along with it, or make it seem like I'm going along with it.
Very good, very good. What's everyone doing? The party's kind of moving outside. They're heading towards the direction of those ruins. They have tiki torches. It's late at this point.
Zeph is still wearing their mask, kind of firelight dancing on the pail. And all I am doing is watching the edge of the horizon for Lucas. That is all I am doing, this abomination. The Cairn Maiden is gone. I cannot feel her. I do not see her, this, freak of nature.
Make the
Going to
information
have to
move.
dispatch it. Mhm.
Make the information move with insight. No,
Ooh, do I
focus.
actually?
Focus.
Okay, okay. I haven't focused on a thing in a minute, but that's what.
Looks like you got a one.
8.
Let me find a clue for you that you will notice in the as you're kind of going, keeping an eye out. You're specifically keeping an eye out for Lucas, right? You don't see. You don't see Lucas. No, you don't see Lucas, but you will notice as you are kind of, they're taking like a circuitous route to the ruins because it's meant to be very ceremonial. They've got tiki torches and everyone's like walking in a line. This is a big moment, right? This is when they're going to bring this bog saint to life. And even though you're not supposed to know it, it's gonna then kill itself so they can be fully free of the rot. And maybe they get the benefit of immortality without the rot, right? They're going the long way around. That's when you're going to notice they have put up wards, prayer marks at intervals all around the land, either to keep something in or to keep something out. That's your clue. And here's your complication. The Void Priestess is walking in front of you, and she will fall back to your position, Zeph, and she'll say, "This is it. This is your last chance. There's a little path out of the swamp just over there. Let's go now, together, and be rid of these gods. Let us forge a new existence, staring into the lightless truth of the void." I need you to make the veiled move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you, in this scene?
That Zeph will leave, but always be a coward.
Oh, interesting. Roll with disadvantage because of your condition, and it's going to be with focus.
All right, Karen Maiden, tell me what this is about. That is a 3. Nope, sorry, I don't have to subtract 1. That is a 5.
If you turn away now, we will revisit you again in epilogue, Zeph. Having turned away from the gods and embracing something, I don't know.
Nothing, actually.
Or nothing, yeah.
I will mark a verse.
Very well. Let's keep going. You've arrived at the ruins if no one else is doing anything. What's everyone up to?
I think Basil starts following the group, but then is smelling whatever was getting cooked in the kitchen.
Oh,
and
okay.
never arrived or served or finished or whatever the case is. And I
Yeah.
think like veers off, like just has to follow his nose at all times.
Fantastic. So you're going to the kitchens?
Yeah, to see what's going on, what they were cooking, what we were supposed to have eaten before the game.
Make the information move with focus.
What is going on? It is oh no, it's a 6.
A 6. Interesting. I'm gonna mark a mark. You have one mark left. And you're separated from the group. We'll find out what you learn in a little bit, if anything. Japheth, what are you doing as you make your way?
I think I'm kind of proceeding a bit meekly towards this ritual, but kind of, I don't know, I expect Gideon Marsh to be like lingering in the shadows somewhere.
Haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, keeping my eyes open for that.
Haven't seen any of the people who made contact with you all throughout the campaign. None of them have been here.
Yeah. I think that's it for the moment. I'm just meandering meekly forward.
Actually, I kind of like that as a clue. Take it as a clue.
The
Gideon
absence
Marsh,
of Gideon Marsh.
Gideon Marsh, and Orifax nowhere to be found.
Okay.
You arrive at the ruins. It's as I described previously. You go down these stairs. You get into this antechamber. It takes a while because they have to haul Otolith in his wheelchair down the steps. But once they finally get you all down there, Otolith is talking about, oh, these, here's the resting place of my great uncle, da 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 da, Sketterich, kind of doing all that, right? And eventually you will get to that chamber where the Bog Saint is. Gage, what are you thinking or feeling right now? What's going on?
I'm wondering where Lucas is.
Indeed. Indeed. You will hear, Daddy.
Where you at, kiddo?
You can hear him, but you can't slip away because you're the chosen. Daddy, we can stay here forever. We can stay here forever. But you can't let them do what they're gonna do.
And why is that?
And you are now being thrust forward toward the altar
All right, I'm going.
of this titanic looming god thing shriveled up, the altar before it. There's one mark left. Do you all want to take a crack at the question now or see where this goes?
We have all
That's
these
Gage's
clues.
decision.
We have
Yeah,
all
we got
these
6 clues, but
yeah.
yeah.
Basil, you step into the kitchens and you see the cooks and things. They're all being held in place by twisted configurations of corn and rebar, holding them in place. Food is bubbling over and burning. One of the cooks, held in place by this explosive concrete growth, hollowed, apparently. Oh. Stay with us. Stay with us. What do you do?
I mean, this kitchen, the food that's being prepared is in chaos.
Right?
Basil is a cook. And I think like just very like instinctively like begins like turning down burners, stirring things. So he is effectively staying with them. I don't think he realizes the gravity of the request, but is just kind of like instinctively like taking over here and making whatever was being made.
This is it. As Gage is led up to the altar, forced up to the altar, I mark my last mark. I need to know the answer to the question. Or work through the clues, please. We know what we think is going on here, what the problem is. They want to bring the god to life to cleanse the rot and then cause it to kill itself so that they can have immortality free and clear. You all suspect that the god is going to come back to life, murder fucking everyone, and go on a continuous murdering spree, and then kill itself. Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of the issue. That's the flaw in their plan. The clues that we've already kind of discussed, the glowworm clues make total sense in this context, right? And
And the fact that Gideon Marsh and Orifax aren't there because
yes,
Gideon Marsh was the introducer of the Globes.
And I almost wonder if Orifax and Gideon Marsh also set the prayer marks around the perimeter of the property, right? Like they intend to keep something in or keep something out. I don't know.
Whatever this ritual is, like they're trying to contain it, like they're allowing it but containing it.
Oh, interesting. Gideon Marsh and Orifax want the god, but they don't want it to like go run roughshod over everything. Is that the idea?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or if they really are trying to construct a god murder suicide, if they're trying to keep the god penned in, it will run out of victims and hopefully end itself.
Oh, I see. Oh,
within
that's
the
interesting.
container.
Oh.
Or within
like
containment.
that.
So Orifax, I see. So maybe Orifax and Gideon Marsh actually do know what they need to do. But the Sketterches don't realize that they're going to be killed. Right? Is that the idea? Okay. Because they're inside the circle. That's pretty good. I like that. That just leaves the two purple clues, the slime leading to the maid's quarters. Actually, I think the it's in the walls is the important part of that clue, which very much speaks to what's going on here. This idea of like, well, the
It's the manifestation of the fungal rot of the god
that's
possessing
keeping them
the
all
house like
there.
it's
Yeah,
possessing
keeping
the
them there.
family.
Yeah. That's great. What's the purple door then? What are we thinking? What's the relevance?
I've got an idea that's, I don't know, maybe it's too cinematic a touchback. I've been carrying in my items the keys from the apartment of Patricia Morel for some time.
You have.
She was murdered by Gideon Marsh.
She was.
She was a follower of the 10th Life sect.
She was.
If you wrote
She has
cursive,
a last name that's a mushroom.
right, she has mushroom. So imagine, if you will, a purple key fob with scripted monogram.
Love it.
That this whole time I thought said PM, Patricia Morel, actually says GM, Gideon Marsh.
Oh,
And
interesting.
the purple door is a symbolic Gideon locking down this location,
Oh, interesting.
planning essentially the death of the entire Sketterich family. That he was their enforcer, but he double crossed them, and
Oh,
he's had
interesting.
a
I
longer
like
play
it.
that we've barely seen.
I like it. Why did he have to kill Patricia Morel then?
I don't even really remember what she was doing, honestly. It was the start of the concrete sprawl,
I
wasn't it?
mean, she was like basically enthralled to Lucas, essentially, right? Or she was kind of like because she
Okay.
knew about she or because the Ninth Life and Lucas, like she was kind of like she was there, kind of like looking after them a little bit. There's something there with that, right?
So
Hmm.
what if
I don't. I
what
think
if
it's
it's
it's an
like
interesting happenstance that her last name is a mushroom, also. So,
what if it is a targeting thing? Like the Lucas was targeting Patricia Morel as opposed to the Sketteriches, and so it's a matter of focusing. Like I need to kill Patricia to focus Lucas on this area that this family that he
oh,
should be killing,
that's
as
really
opposed to
interesting.
like killing way over here. Like no, like
Really
this is where I
interesting.
need you to
they're
focus.
getting him back on task,
Yeah.
and that's where you all came in, right? Because Lucas like glommed onto you, right?
Can
Lucas
Gideon
tried to convince you to go. We really wanted you all to go do the Skyward Sprawl assignment so that he could like continue his murderous impulses there. Um,
can we have at some point maybe a cutscene where Gideon Marsh is actually our handler at Based?
I love it. It was really good. Yeah. Oh, that's really good. This was all like kind of an effort to get the stray dreaming of this god back where it needs to be. That's dark. It's really good though. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if somebody were to watch the whole campaign in order if it would all hold together, but hopefully it would hang together well enough. I'm into it in any case if there's no objections. It's a plus two. It's a great theory. Who's rolling it?
Not me, because I've been rolling too well, and so this will be the time I choke.
All right. It's +2 would be 10.
Nice. Good. You've unlocked the opportunity to, what does it say here? Resolve the confrontation by exploiting this flaw and disrupting the awakening ritual or altering its outcome in a way that neutralizes the threat posed by the family. I mean, we're going to have to play with this a little bit. Just to recap what's kind of happening here, just so we're all on the same page. They need to bring this god to life. The god has been giving them immortality, but there's a rot problem. They need to bring it to life to clear the rot, and then they need to cause it to kill itself. That's what the gloams are for, in order to have the benefit of the immortality, what they've learned from it, but not the rot. Uh, what they have not, what they have failed to realize is that the god is going to kill them and everyone here before before it then kills itself. Orifax and Gideon Marsh know this, and they are just, and so they've created a barrier so that the god will just kill the Sketteriches and then kill itself. Presumably, they benefit if the Sketteriches are out of the picture in some way, right? So, pretty good. The question is, what are you all going to do? Like, what's the right move here? What's the play?
I have an idea.
Let's hear it.
So I have these seeds under my skin, seeds of the god that his family has always worshipped. And my final prayer involves the devouring of something impossible.
Are you going to eat the boy?
You're going to do your final prayer. That's great.
I think that's Gage's plan here. That's why he didn't fight to be the chosen one. That's why he hid so well.
Let's read it. Let's read your final prayer.
I narrate a scene in which I stretch and burst into a towering avatar of the harvest, all threshing limbs and hollow eyes, a cavernous mouth stretching wider and wider, enough to devour something impossible, a row of vehicles, a building, a landmark, a god. You consume it entirely, folding in on yourself in a furious mass of twisted, rotting stalks and churning soil. The place of your final offering becomes a new haunt of your god, your family worshipped for generations and never once forgot.
I love it. I think you should consume not just the god, but all of this. This whole swamp should just become that. Um, Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go around the table. Ben, I'd like for you to begin what this looks like as your final prayer begins. Like start narrating that. There's no die rolls here. Start narrating that, and as it starts, everything starts to like happen. I want everyone else to just narrate montage for themselves of like what they're doing in this moment, what's happening, and then once that's all done, we'll resolve any verses or do epilogues as we need to. But let's just start here. What happens when you step up onto that altar, Gage?
Gage will turn around and I think he'll lock eyes with Japheth, and he'll say as he starts rolling up his sleeves, and you can see the bumps on his arms, the embedded seeds. He'll say, Japheth, I have a boy out there. Keep an eye on him, will you?
I'll do my best. It's been, yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay. You may want to skedaddle.
Uh, is it okay for me to interrupt here, Ben?
Absolutely.
Okay. Japheth then thinks that this is his moment to try and do like a big pass it unto me and like suck off the destruction that he sees as heading for Gage. And he starts reciting the invocation of the Retchman's order, getting increasingly frantic. This, oh kindly pair, hearken to me, brother that itches, sister that drips, my flesh is yours, I make my plea. And you know, as he's getting further and further into the frantic, it's just not working. And then he's like, maybe I better actually back off this time, and starts kind of making his way out of here.
And
Zeph. Oh, sorry, keep going. Yeah.
oh, I just think we see the beginnings of like corn silk starting to sprout from his arms. So from the seeds, things are starting to burst forth.
The Void Priestess, overcome with this clear and present manifestation of divine power, a complete a complete rejection of her belief system, a manifest argument against everything she believes in, the truth that there is no void, there is no nothingness, there is God. There are gods in the world. She lifts her mask and begins to claw at her own eyes and wail on the stones.
I think
Gage,
Zeph,
oop, I think
oh, I
the
think
the sprouts are starting to like root him into the altar and the ground, and he looks ecstatic.
Zeph.
Zeph, Zeph will watch as Gage's roots start to dislodge the stone and soil out from him, as if he's growing giant roots of an oak tree in real time that stretch out and start to suck up all the water in this place. And Zeph will stand still watching long enough until they feel the earth start to move, They'll take a step back and a step back and then start to run.
Give us some more, Ben. What happens as you start to consume the god?
The roots start to burst up from underneath at a distance now as underneath the earth what's been growing in him starts to spread out, and those roots just push through the body of the god, and it writhes, unclear whether it's moving or the roots are moving it, as it they start sprouting from within it.
Basil, how do you know that the thralls of the god in the kitchen are being, how do you know the god's being consumed based off what they're doing or what's happening to them?
Um, there's this one of our clues, right, is that it's in the walls. And I think that like this um it's like a fungus. Yeah, a purple fungus is just kind of like growing out of the walls, and kind of like almost like an airbag, kind of like filling the room. And Basil is, stirring these pots and running around, and kind of inspired by Ben, I'm going to tap on my final prayer here as well.
Oh,
Of um, Basil is he's looking at these. There are these books, like these tomes that have these recipes in that have been like precisely written by the Sketteriches as part of this ritual, and Basil kind of looks at them and is like, "Oh, it's so cliche, though, isn't it?" And he starts reciting the Moldering Litany, and as he's walking around and he's cutting off this purple fungus from the walls, he is cutting the cheeks of these house servants who are entwined in the corn silk and rebar, and making these recipes that are a mix of god flesh and human flesh and whatever they were making, regular ingredients from the earth. And then he reaches into his pocket and he finds candy that he had received from Gage, and he drops it into the stew. And in that second, everything that is recorded, everything that is written, all stored information, in a just vaporizes into a cloud of smoke. There's no record of anything that has happened here. The history of the Sketteriches, that painting of Lucas is gone. And then, yeah, we cut away from the kitchen.
I think you have no control over the Moldering Litany, and this destruction of knowledge spreads even beyond the swamp. There are families and institutions within miles of the swamp who are going to forget their past, who are going to lose like their like everything, just like it's all going to be wiped away. Every written word, every every bit of like data that might be held on computer systems, every tale told between family members over, holiday dinners or, God, sort of like holy celebrations or feasts, just wiped from memory. It is the very concept of record evaporating, returning the land to the land. Gage, keep it going. What does it look like as this spreads, as it takes over, as it grows wild?
You can't even see Gage anymore in this mass of vines, that the blood and flesh on them that was him have all spread out and been carried away, and it and the bog corpse is also lost, just consumed within this mass. I'm curious if it would be possible for Lucas to be consumed as well.
You want it to be, yeah.
when we last saw him, he was pushed off the roof, and I kind of imagine where he's lying, maybe not quite dead, the roots start to push up through the ground around him, and they start sprouting.
Japheth and Zeph, are you just running? Like,
Naruto hands like behind
yeah,
him
like just running,
off
just
of
getting the
like
hell out.
broken earth, trying to get ahead of it like a tsunami of churning, roiling earth that's being freshly tilled by this new saint.
The
Yeah, I'm doing my best to run. I don't think I'm a really fast person. I'm not keeping up with Zephyr, but I'm doing my best to outpace the growth and get out of here. Also, yeah.
the other guests were consumed rather rapidly by the growth, but the Sketteriches are resisting as best they can being consumed by this by this earth, by these stalks of wheat, by this like massive rapid growth that's overcoming them. And they're all kind of like looking at each other, and the moldering litany has wiped them. They have no idea what they're doing here. They have no idea what any of this was for. They don't even know who they are to each other. And they're consumed by the earth. Their last thoughts, nothing but confusion. Finish it off, Ben.
As Zeph and Japheth make their way out of the immediate vicinity, the god that had been sleeping under Gage's skin in these seeds, it doesn't know what it was anymore, because that has also been lost. It's not Jack of the Thousand Eyes, it's not Sweet Jolly Crunch Tooth, it's something new, as it always should have been. And uh, as the final prayer says, in the seasons to come, Gage's sprawling body will settle into the sloping field, rich dark earth and verdant shoots of blossoms opening their eager faces to the sun, hosting the buzzing insects and merry prancing creatures that will spring forth and revel and die again, feeding the roots and continuing the cycle forever.
That feels like a good conclusion for Gage. Basil, you want to give us a little epilogue?
Yeah. The epilogue, I I don't remember all the details, but we have hinted at this in the past, or we saw a glimmer of it in the past of Basil opening a restaurant that people were flocking to. And I think that Basil ends up using this space that Gage has like seeded and turned into farmland. No one knows how to cook. All of their traditions of recipes and food are gone. And Basil kind of becomes both an apostle of Gage as well as this like philosophy of the waxen scrivener, and he is eating and consuming what was Gage, what is this new saint within this world. And so we cut back to that scene of Basil reaching into a incision, a hole, a gap in his belly, and he is pulling out seeds that look just like the seeds that Gage had under his skin. And that's what he's giving to people who are lined up to come to this restaurant that I don't remember if it had a name. So retcon, the name of the restaurant is Apostle.
Fantastic. Seth and Japheth, you can cast forward into the future as much as you want. Zeph, I know you have some open verses, so you can incorporate that as needed. But epilogue for each of your characters.
Yeah.
What do we see at the end for Japheth?
Uh, we're cutting ahead a bit. You hear a motorcycle on an empty country road, like pop, 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 pop. And says, our paths got apart here, partner. And Sister Coral gives Japheth a hand to get off the back of her motorcycle, and he walks the rest of the way, kicking a little can up the lane to Gage's farm. And, Easton, Gage's son's there, and Japheth walks up to him and says, boy, I knew your father, and he wanted me to pass this on to you and kind of keep an eye on you, and I give him a little packet of seeds.
Fantastic. Zeph?
To work my verses into my yeah, so when we last saw Zeph, they had turned their back on the maiden altogether, and I am supposed to describe a time in my adulthood where I neglected my life in the pursuit of miracles. And I think Zeph broke completely and spent months killing random strangers, angels, anything in their path as they just tried to summon the Cairn Maiden to make her face me. And biased, eventually tracking me like a serial killer I was across the country, this killing angel on a spree. And you see me cornered and corralled into service. And now the maiden lost me altogether, fleeing from this place. I think Zeph just starts along that road again, begrudgingly going back and finding the bodies I created to put them to rest.
That's the Silt versus role playing game, Family Ties. Let's go to stars and wishes. um, Whoever would like to go first? you've all been talking a lot. I'll go first. Stars for the session, really terrific. It was such a weird like mystery, and the structure of it was really strange. And I'm still kind of like wrapping my head around the structure of the final those three sets of questions. But it's interesting. It was really interesting. Um, I love the decision to do final prayers at the end. I thought that was really great. It kind of made the moment much more dramatic and kind of epic, you know. So I thought that was really terrific. The epilogues were fantastic. They feel very fitting for the characters, you know, because I feel like Basil was always kind of just like one step away from descending into that sort of thing. And clearly, you know, Gage, I think, was meant to be a sort of martyr type character the whole time. It felt that way. And Zeph and Japheth being the ones that kind of like survive on makes a lot of sense to me, like in the terms of like how the story was going. It's also kind of ironic, given the gods that they worship. There's an irony, I think, in the two of them being the ones that kind of are continuing on. Um, but yeah, this is really great. And read the whole campaign. We had some big gaps in between sessions, but I thought whenever we came back to it, we always kind of like slipped back in and got back into it. And the story is there's so many like unanswered questions and ambiguities in it, but I think that's what makes it really enjoyable, you know? Like there's something really fun about like not having all the answers and the gods having a basic kind of like unknowableness and how that like sort of affects everything, I think is really intriguing. It's a thing that happens in this game and I find really fascinating. Like you never quite have all the answers, and I think that is what makes it really interesting and satisfying. And that came through really strongly. And yeah, I mean, there was just so many good scenes. I'm gonna miss these characters quite a lot. But it was a really good time. Yeah, just all around fantastic.
Speaking a little bit to not having all the answers, I think that that's really evocative of the source material too, if I'm honest. Because plenty of the Silt verses from the podcast is kind of in a gray mist of undescribed territory. And for us as players to kind of step in and then color that space was really interesting. Um, I loved Zeph. I could see this arc taking place over three conspiracies as it's kind of designed to launch a little longer
Yeah, you're meant to play
terms.
several arcs. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, and I love a slow burn character, so this morose former murder hobo would have had a lot of fun rolling that into a lot of campfire conversations. But I think that there was a lot of really evocative storytelling all around. Just stars from today. I wrote them down and now I don't have the list in front of me. So we'll have to just keep talking about the campaign.
I can hop in here. Sarah, I like the kind of the bitter disgruntledness you had with the Cairn Maiden making herself useful for a change. And Mike, the bluff that you had tried to fatten up the tattletale guy was fantastic, like turning the tables. Sarah wrote a thing in chat that did not happen, but she mentioned that in that knife fight, Handyman sweeps the leg.
I kept forgetting about Handyman. I always forget about animal companions. They never stick in my mind for some reason.
Yeah, and similarly regarding Handyman, that between Jason and Mike, the Handyman licks the blood. Oh no, we both do. Um, I love that image of the geese pulling eggs from a severed throat, and I don't know, it was just good and gross and sort of Brothers Grimm level fantasy. Um, what else do we got here? Bringing back the concrete sprawl ritual. Sprawl ritual. I tend to forget the earned rituals that are out there. So glad to see that. New float O cereal. If you watched me on camera, I lost it. Good thing the mic was off. That was really amazing. And then the vibes between Gage and Lucas at the end here with this crumbling estate really reminded me of Shirley Jackson's book. We have always lived in the castle.
Oh yeah.
Really brought that out for me. I thought that was fantastic. And then I just loved the epic conclusion. Went really well, I thought.
I guess like a star for the sort of way that this conspiracy turned in this session, like was like very like purist folk horror for me, which was really cool because I think that's something that this game like has a lot of like vibes and aesthetics, and the game world has a lot of like ties into that. This like got me over that sort of like over the hump in like it's folk horror, like just this ritual happening, the sort of like pacing of the ritual, and this sort of like the multi-stage ritual of it, and working toward this like big like happening at the end. And yeah, the ties into like the land being so important, the like all of those like very folk horror-y things, like the isolation of it, all of that. So like it really got that like feeling for me. In a yeah, and so I don't know if all the conspiracies are like that or if that's something specific that Gabriel was doing with this one, but it really got that and really
No,
nailed
the
it.
other conspiracy is much more of a like almost like Resident Evil style, like secret lab kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Very, very different. Very, very different. Yeah.
So this, yeah, a big star for like this being the one that we did then, because that's yeah, like very much my thing, my bag. And then yeah, like a big kind of like story arc, kind of like star is that coming into this session, I was feeling really weird about this being the end. Basil's and that idea of like we would be continuing with like additional conspiracies and that kind of thing, because I had felt like Basil had sort of like hit the climax of backstory. Like we kind of knew everything that Basil
Yeah.
had on the table, and I was like, I don't know, it feels like it might drag on. So just a big star for I think that that inspiration from Ben, like grabbing that final prayer for that sort of momentous conclusion. And we had talked about, I think that from the beginning when I started playing Basil as like this weird interpretation of the Waxen Scrivener that's all about eating things, that like Gage and Basil are on a weird parallel
Yeah.
path and almost going to like crash into each other at some point. And so for that to happen, I thought like in that opportunity to open up, I thought
They
was really like,
harmonized, right?
yeah,
Ultimately, yeah.
really exciting and interesting for these two
Yeah.
characters that were kind of like not huge fans of each other. We had some moments along the road and that kind of thing, but like that were kind of oil and water. Then to kind of like have this like merging moment at the end that wrapped it all together, I thought was a really fun opportunity to play with in the story. Um, we got to see a lot of like that Karen Maiden side from Zeph, which was awesome as well. Like, yeah, like all of these characters are, it was cool. And we got like a very like final feeling. I love Japheth in the closet too, in the wardrobe, whatever that was. Um, yeah, cool. That's what I got.
Uh, my star notes were for Mike, just the eggs, all caps. That was so good. That weird scene with the swan necks. That was like something out of a nightmare, but in a great way. Sarah, your line is, as Brian mentioned, the Cairn Maiden being useful for a change. I loved that, and I loved the path that Seth ended up going on, and just that little conclusion of now going to clean up their mess was a really poignant way to wrap up their story. Brian, the closet was just classic Japheth and Brian, but just the way you tied the end of our campaign back to the first part with Patricia Morell and those little links that you made throughout that was so good, and it made the whole thing feel, even if, as Jason you mentioned, maybe it doesn't hold together, if you,
Kind of brought it around, didn't it?
yeah, it kind of makes it feel like it holds together in a way that I think is really good. And as Sarah mentioned, it really feels like the podcast. We don't have all the answers. We don't know how all this worked, but we don't need to because it felt like it worked. And that's what matters. And Jason Star for making it feel like it works and going with our wacky uh, solutions and theories and making it all feel cohesive and fun and like a good yarn.
This
We
is
told a fun story.
Yeah, this is a being a keeper for this one versus the other CFB games, say, is really different in a certain way because in this game I think it's like the keeper, like when I'm running public access or the between, especially those two, but also Brindlewood Bay, like I have a really good handle on like what's happening next, right? Like no matter what's happening in the story, I kind of like I can very easily merge my idea with whatever happens at the table, right? It's very simple and it's straightforward in that way. This game is really different and it's not difficult necessarily, but you have to when you're running it, you you really have to come to the table ready to discard whatever you think is going on, right? Like, no matter what you might have in your mind before you sit down to run the game, um, you have to be ready and flexible to like just be prepared for something completely out of the ordinary to happen because of this setting, you know? Like that egg thing, like that was like something I have no way of anticipating, right? But it was really cool. So it's a really interesting experience. It does help quite a lot that the four of you are like very, you know, well, like we have all been playing together for a really long time and we kind of know each other's vibe and rhythms and everything, and that's all really great. But and so that helps a lot because we can kind of trust each other to take the story in some really strange ways, and we know it's going to be okay. Um, it's really interesting in that way how wonderfully weird and collaborative it is, while still kind of basically you still have this. You're still kind of like doing like all the things you're meant to be doing, you know, solving cases and doing all that stuff, but then all this like but it's like in this like context of like incredibly bizarre things happening all around you. So it's intriguing. It's a different experience running this game versus the other CFP games. Not worse or better, just really really different. So I found it an interesting challenge. But are there any other stars and wishes before we go? Fantastic. Well, this was really wonderful. Thank you all so much. We've finished another campaign of something, so that's exciting. And we are not meeting next week, but we'll kind of figure out what will happen after that. If you're watching this, we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you around.